Hi, guys. Before you get into the next amazing conversation with another amazing guest, I just wanted to tell you I have now moved over to Substack. So it's the Never Settle Podcast.substack.com. The reason I've done that is because of the increase in censorship I am finding on YouTube, and I'm worried that maybe one day they're going to deplatform me. So please head over to Substack and subscribe. I'm very new into it. It's growing. There will be a lot more content on there going forwards and hope to see you over there. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome, viewers. Today, I have the wonderful, incredibly knowledgeable Peter Wilson. Peter used to be a Royal Navy gunner and armourer, turned professional fighter and a gym owner for over 30 years. But now Peter has turned his attention to fighting the corruption of the banks, don't we know it, and the debt industry. And after losing everything, including his own home, in 2007, Peter went on to research the crooked mortgage companies, studying GDPR and equity to enable people to fight back against the systems and use their own rules against them. And obviously, me and Peter have got to know each other very a little bit over the last few days via Victoria Rixon, which many of you will know, in terms of the help that you've been giving Victoria. And I was like, come on, Peter, you got to come on. So welcome. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for the invite. It's always nice to mix and meet new people and spread the word.
Absolutely. So obviously, you've shared there that you lost everything back in 2007, and the viewers and listeners always love a bit of a backstory to understand more about the person that's having the conversation with me. And I'm always intrigued as to when people sort of woke up, were you always alternative, or was it something that sort of came to you after you were just like, what the actual hell is going on here? So go as far back as you want, Peter, but just give us a little bit of history on you.
Yeah, I mean, you could take it right back to being a kid, like I've always been black sheep of the family and alone, absolutely, always knew that I probably shouldn't be here. There's something like not quite right, doesn't fit, all of those different things. And experiencing things, even as like a young child, I didn't realize what it was, but I used to actually. Well, the only way to describe it is kind of like astral traveling and being outside of your body and knowing it and but not knowing what it was or
Yeah.
how to describe it to anybody else. And I had many experiences like that. And not as much now. It was all a lot more when I was like younger and even sort of like how to come back to the actual body and times that I couldn't actually get back in, how painful that was actually
Wow.
trying to transition to get back in. And
That must have been
again,
very scary.
very absolutely, especially when it is young, terrifying. And I've ne like never really thought much about, well, what does that mean or anything until, I started talking to people who were like doing hypnotherapy and also like meditation and explaining it to them and getting more in depth and knowledge about it and then obviously explaining really what was happening and the out of body experience like part of it. So it was like, oh wow, that's like, to get what a label if you want to call it that, but a little bit more of in-depth knowledge, saying, well, yeah, that's exactly what was happening. So it was very weird. And I mean, I've always been extremely rebellious. Just one of them things, I've been like always on kind of the wrong side of the law, if you want to call it, for a very long time. I'm not going too deep into any of that stuff. I've been
Oh,
going
come on,
out of
come
court.
on.
Yeah, I've been in and out of court like from sort of like the age of 13 onwards. So I've got a lot of experience of it. I mean, I'm talking as well about at that age of like being in one that looked like the Crown Court like scene out off that old TV program, Crown Court, and all funny wigs and great big wooden rooms and everything, looking at you like you facing years in prison and being able to get out of it, like through good barristers and whatnot. And it's been kind of like that on and off for a long time. Not always as successful as some. Uh, but then so, joining the forces was incredibly difficult for me because I'm not very good at doing what I'm told at all. So that's like incredibly troublesome. So again, just like tons of trouble all the time. Quite funny. I remember like the time that I decided I've got to get out of here. This is enough. And you've got to hand in your notice, right? This is, I mean, probably totally different now. This is a long time ago in the 80s, this was. So I handed in my notice to leave, which has to be 18 months. You don't just
Wow.
it's a week's notice, like, it's like 18 months notice. And nobody argued, they went, yeah, no problem. I'll take
Yeah,
that.
off you go.
Yeah, it's like, I wish it was a lot quicker for that was them thinking that we could get you out now. Um, but yeah, so it's always been sort of like definitely on the other side of things. But then when like I mean I came out of the Navy, I went I lived in Spain for a while, then would come back and it's always been like training physically, boxing, then moved into like the martial arts side of it, and then very I think it was like 1994, like opened up, our own gym. And from there, obviously getting massively into like the amateur side, getting a great team together of competitors as well, and then moving into the professional side and bringing a team that we're fighting professionally as well. Even my wife, like won the world championship, ladies full contact kickboxing. So, very successful gym as well, extremely successful martial arts school. Uh, got awarded sort of like, martial arts school owner of the year by the Martial Arts Industry Association. So it was a major success story in our life. But what we did was we actually used all of like any wealth that we got from there to actually invest in property. So I had been for a short time a mortgage advisor and a mortgage broker. So I had been, got qualifications on the finance industry, mortgage and pension industry. So I did know a bit about it. And
Did you find it dodgy, Peter, or did you just think, oh, this is how it is?
by doing it, when I was involved in it, well, do you know, I mean, the paperwork and the forms, it's just as bad now as it was back then. Nothing gets signed properly. It all just gets sent out. You get people to actually sign on one part that nothing else gets signed again, and you take the papers away. It's completely, I wouldn't say it was like, it's illegal, it's a crime, but I mean, it's not lawful. So it
Yeah,
can't stand up to scrutiny if it was ever questioned in a court. And that was just bog standard business practice.
yeah.
So we knew all these things, but like when we had done that and invested quite heavily into property, it was all over the UK. We had property, and also in the United States. And then we come up to 2007, 8, and 9, which was obviously the massive financial crash, and you could see that it was all just done on purpose. It was all an invention. And but we were in the middle of just this whirlwind of disaster that was unstoppable, for me. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is that I had actually been made bankrupt before, um, very early in the 90s. And what it was, I had a job at the time, which I haven't had many jobs really. I've always been kind of like a one-man band on things for mainly, but I was actually selling telephone switchboards, right, for a company called Alcatel, massive French telecommunications company. And I was, you would go up and down the street, like walking into offices and explaining, about these telephone systems, how they would work, blah, blah, blah. And I actually started talking to a guy, which I didn't know at the time, but he was a bailiff. And he had some kind of debt, um, sort of like advice, the office. So I went into there, like, not, totally blindly, like, here's my business card, chatting away. And then when I found it out like a little bit more, I did sell him like a whole switchboard. It was great. So and then he was just telling me what he was doing. He was a debt collector. He was a qualified bailiff, and and I was just talking and then getting onto debt, and I was in a lot of debt at that time. I said, "Oh my God, it's terrible." Blah blah blah, and he went, "Oh, he's just get rid of it all." I went, well, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Just fill in a bankruptcy form." I mean, it was only a couple of hundred quid back then. Can't remember exactly. And he says, "Look, you've got no mortgage, you've got just a normal job, you haven't got a business. So if you go and just fill in a form, go to court, you pay your fee, they'll stamp it, you go next door to the actual the receiver's office, but because you've got nothing, they're just going to say no problem, stamp it, and you're on your way, and it's all gone. And I didn't believe it at first, but like, over the weeks as I was getting this system installed for him and he explained it, I thought this is incredible. So you can just disappear it like that. He went, yeah, yeah, because none of it's real anyway. And I'm like,
What do
okay.
you mean? None of
I mean,
it's
this
real.
is like, yeah, this is like 1991. This is, and I'm like, I have to know some more about this. So I did it, and he didn't help me as such. He didn't fill forms in or anything, and I was quite gobsmacked at how easy it was, and that was it, finished. And I remember telling like my parents, and they were disgusted. But you don't have to pay your debt, and I was like, well, the debt's not real anyway. Don't be so stupid. Well,
I was about
okay,
to say
okay.
that just shows you, doesn't it? Like if you think about, because a friend of mine's just done it as well. She's got nothing in her name, etc., etc. So she's done the bankruptcy voluntary, and it just makes you realize, well, if they're happy to just stamp it and let go of all of that debt without any comeback, other than the fact that okay, so for the next 2 or 3 years they could still come after you if you got some assets or whatever. But that just shows you just what a load of bollocks the debt is.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's just all fake. And then, like, well, okay, let's presume that you're not going to get a windfall or win the lottery or anything like that or get an inheritance. So, like, after 12 months, then, if you've just been like living as I did, boom, it's all finished.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get can't remember the name now, but it's like, that then after that 12-month period, you're completely back to normal. You can start borrowing straight away. Your credit score, whatever it was. I mean, nobody really, I didn't even know anything about like, getting a credit score. I knew that they used to look at things, but I didn't know you could as well. So that was it. It was like back to normal. And then, this time, obviously, what I had done is I didn't have credit card debt as such. I mean, I had like loans, but mainly mine were like buy-to-let mortgages, that I had in different places. So it was all kind of like what the industry called, right? The property development industry called good debt, right?
Yeah.
So you're buying debt to actually make money, and I suppose it does sound very sensible. Um,
Just as an aside, what property courses did you do? You must have done.
Well, I know I did one, but because of the friends that I had in the martial arts industry at the time, nearly all of them had tons of property, and
Mm.
so I mean, some of them do still now. I know them, I still speak to them, and I mean, they own streets of properties. There's one guy actually owns a whole village in India, right? Whole village. But yeah, so I was lucky and like through how good friends. I know I did some course and I went away and I remember like, going over it and it gave you access to certain different brokers that would get you knowledge and deals that no one else could ever see,
Mm.
which is how you can get it like no money down, get the properties.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, apparently you can still do that, but back in the day, it was you
A
couldn't
lot
get it
easier.
unless you were in the club.
Mm.
But yeah, I did something. I just can't remember what it was
No
now.
worries, no worries. It's all right because I did a load of stuff. I did a bit of property, but and when you mentioned that time frame, 2007 to 2009, I ended up buying two places in Spain in 2007, and by 2010 they were gone.
Yeah.
Because yeah, the crash was I wasn't laughing at the time. It was not great, but anyway, we digress. Carry on.
Yeah. So, and then because we've got all that sort of like debt, the second time the going bankrupt there, um, I just lumped everything into it as well. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go for it here. So, whatever that they had, I made sure that, overdrafts were maxed out. I made sure that if I did have a credit card, I maxed it out, paid off minimum just to keep it like, going until I got this court case. It's not a court case though. It's just for anybody that ever does think about it, if you've got nothing to lose, there's nothing they can do. And you literally just go into an office and the guy goes, right, you filled that in, you paid it, yeah, stamp, right? And then you got to go next door where the receivers is. But if you're in that position, they're like, oh, okay, well, you've got 12 months and you'll get discharged. And that's it. If there's anything, the second time I actually lumped in a massive HMRC bill as well. So they weren't happy about that. So they did actually pull us into another interview. And and then they went, right, okay. And I just went, oh no, it's just like it was terrible, blah blah, lost all this property, like everybody stopped paying their mortgage, which was true as
Yeah.
well. So like, all of these, not the mortgages, the bloody rents. So no one was paying their rent, so it was horrible for everybody. We even had one guy completely just dismantled the entire apartment weirdly. Like you're taking machines, like all the washing machines are all built in, and cookers and that. For whatever, he freaks out and he literally pulled them apart, like, and had them all laid out on the floor, like in all the little elements and components. A bit nuts, but.
Wow.
And yeah, and then there was like, oh well, that's damage and everything. Where's your insurance? Oh no, that insurance doesn't cover that. What's the point of having any insurance when nothing gets covered? So everything was just a rolling disaster. So, but like they were said, right, we have to come back for like we've got to go over what happened then about this HMRC bill stuff. I mean, we actually changed accountants at the time. This because we did have a really successful martial arts school, and we got into a position. Thought, right, we need to change the accountant who turned out to be a clown. And the bill went from like very easily manageable to like about 50 grand. And I was like, hang on, how do you do that? And he went, oh, you've got to sort it out. Just go bankrupt. I remember him saying, just go bankrupt. Thought, wait, that's bloody great, isn't it? Like just like advice like that. So, when they'd said, can you come back in to have this interview? We'd already decided we'd had enough of everything. We're leaving. We're going to Spain. We'd already been out, picked out like a rental apartment and everything. So, I didn't say anything to them at the time. They went, right, you got to come back in, big investigation. So I went to Spain, and then I rang them up. I goes, oh, I can't come to that appointment tomorrow. We live in Spain now. And they were like on their phone, they were going mad. So you've got to come back. You need to investigate all this things. Well, what are you going to do? Because there was nothing we can do. I go, see you later then. And that was it. So, and then the thing is, you don't get your 12-month discharge. That's what they did say. You'll not get discharged after 12 months. Oh, I'm heartbroken, But then so it lasts 6 years, I think, and then you get discharged automatically anyway, which we were still in Spain, so who give him monkeys?
Right. Okay. So you stayed over there that long, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, not just because of that. I mean, I would still be in there now if I'd had the option. But yeah, and it just as it turned out, it was getting worse and worse. And Janina was ill actually. She was back in England, so I was on my own with five dogs, going crazy. And I was like, this is not what I'm here for. I'm not enjoying myself, going backwards and forwards to the hospital. So I just thought, oh, I won't get about. I'm going back because we didn't have any medical cover in Spain, right? Because we were
What part of
completely
Spain were
under
you
the
in?
radar. We lived in a little village called Alarin El Grande, and the whole place is going mad now. The postman's knocking, the dogs are barking. But
Is
Alarin
that
El Grande,
Alicante?
no, it was down south in Andalusia, Costa del Sol, but not
Uh,
on the coast. It was like a village. So yeah, amazing, beautiful place. We actually lived in the middle of nowhere. This like villa was actually built onto, probably completely illegally, a Moorish fort. So there was the big fort there, and the guy had built like this villa onto it. But Antonio, but he could do anything he wanted, you know. Um, but yeah, in that village, yeah. So it was great living there, and we had like a martial arts gym there as well. But like I say, it was hard in the summer because everybody left, because the Spanish wouldn't train with you, so we were only training as it was foreigners, you could say. But as soon as you hit June and the schools closed, right, everybody left to go back because it was too hot. So they all went back to whatever, Russia, England, Norway, Sweden, and we were left on our own. So yeah, I had no income like for them 4 months, and it was 4 months. So I was like doing security work, working on nightclubs, and it was like not for me. I've done it all before, can't be bothered with that, and too hot to be
yeah.
doing that type of thing. Um, so and then like I said, that happened. I just thought that I'm coming back. Can't, it's too much now.
How long ago was that?
Come back in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, September 2012, yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
how did you come back and then make that sort of jump into what you do now? How did that happen?
Well, obviously you still know a lot of people, like in the martial arts and in the property side and everything like that. And then um, as we are watching more and more our YouTube stuff, because it was getting bigger and bigger all the time, and I was like looking at and seeing these exactly what had happened to me, but it's like happening to more and more people, and it wasn't as disastrous in the police sense. But I was watching these people getting dragged out of the homes by the police. I'm thinking, hang on a second, right? That's they can't afford to pay their mortgage. What's it got to do with the police? Like, what's the crime?
Yeah.
So I was watching them, literally men and women, right, getting physically dragged and thrown in the street, covered in bruises, ripped clothes, and everything, like that. And it's like, so what I said was like, I need to start like telling people what happened to me and how you can actually do things about it. And then obviously from there, it sort of like envelopes out to more on the unsecured side, and then just like looking under the GDPR stuff. And I still had like contacts in the mortgage industry and brokers and stuff like that. So you can do a lot more like investigations, but on the other side, as long as you don't tell them what you're doing, what it's for,
So to go back to all the property you had, why did you lose it all? Just simply that people weren't paying you rent, you couldn't afford the mortgages, and you just let it all go?
Well, literally, that is it. It was when it was getting up to that time, like later, it was in like middle of 2007. That you could feel everything was tightening on everybody. Everything was on a buy-to-let mortgage, everything. So I had down in Plymouth, we had in Leeds, Manchester, over in the United States as well, which was worse there. Um, and it was just like it wasn't nothing was getting paid. So I'm having to pay like, what I can't remember, like 10, 12 mortgages, as well as like my own and running like a gym as well. Um, so like there was no money to actually pay for anything, or if it was all paid out, there wasn't enough coming in to be left, and it was like this. If this continues, you're going to end up starving to death. Never mind anything else.
Yeah.
So it was just like literally the cash flow virtually overnight just dried up. It happened so quickly, um,
Yeah.
and then I actually just went, no, I'm just going to pull the plug. I'm just going to dump it all, and that's what we did. So same thing, literally just did it myself, paid a fee, can't remember again what the fee was. And that was it. But obviously then we had a lot of property, including my own home, and I wasn't waiting around. I wasn't going to have any arguments with anyone. So I never paid anything, not even my own mortgage. Thought, right, we're going. Had enough, right? So we'd already like got a place to rent and everything in Spain. So we said, we're going to go there. We literally sitting in the front room with no furniture whatsoever for about 3 weeks. And that was it. And just waiting to actually get the time to fly over and to get back into this apartment that we had rented, literally just rented.
Wow.
So I got the keys, put it in an envelope, shut the door and put the keys through the front door and just buggered off. And that was it. Just like I sent a message to all of my agents because I had agents looking, I didn't can't go down to Plymouth to pick up my rent, can you? From Newcastle. So I just messaged all the agents, say, look, nothing's gonna get paid. More than likely these are all gonna get repossessed. So just be wary of that. No one's been paying you anyway. They knew. So I haven't been getting anything. So I'm jumping. And that was it.
That was it. Bloody hell. It's a lot to let go of, but I guess it was quite freeing as well because it was just building up and building up.
Well, I mean, it's extremely stressful at the time, isn't it? And especially if you've had properties in Spain, it is stressful to try and manage it and work through it. And it was kind of freeing, yeah. I don't know, I was like under a lot of stress, and so then just leave and go to Spain, and they got no worries whatsoever, apart from you had no job or anything. But it only took about a month though, and we actually had a gym open up in Spain from scratch, from nothing. So, and it was going well, and it did well for quite a long time.
Mm.
But like I say, it's different in Spain though. You can't do it like in England where everyone's on contracts and stuff like that. You can't do that in Spain. Like the way we were doing it as well. We were declared everything. We were completely, just under the radar, didn't like, get any licenses for anything or no registrations or anything like that. We didn't tell anyone where we were, what we do, and just did whatever we wanted. Not harming anyone though. So
Yeah.
just
It's
living as
more
a
probably
man.
more challenging to do that now, but so I interrupted you there. So you basically came back to the UK 2012 because of your wife and the hospital and everything. And then what did you do? Sort of just try and start again?
Yeah, I mean, so literally, I mean, we drove back from southern Spain, right? So like literally as far south as you could basically get in Spain, it was not far from Gibraltar. Um, so we drove back. I think it was something like the 12th of September. We had hardly any money, right? But by that time, because like you need to be going backwards and forwards to England, going to hospital, coming back, and that. And we literally just went, "Oh, let's go." One week I said, "I'm not doing this again. Let's just go this week." It's like, nah, come on, that's it. Just like, whatever furniture we had, just like leave it all, right? They can have it all, like just get the dogs. So we actually had me and her and not much to put in the car, but four dogs. And then just drove back from Spain. We didn't even have a map. Yeah, I'm surprised I'm here. You know? We just said, look, well, there's the sea, right? So if we keep it on the right-hand side and drive north, we're gonna find England someday. That was basically the plan. Just and but we're literally even the dogs were on like bread and water for like 3.5 days to get to England. And even when we got there, we had nowhere to live, you know. So we
You
ended
have an understanding wife, Peter.
Yeah. So like we ended up like just being in like a spare room in my son's home, us and four dogs. In a it wasn't it was like a little single bed thing as well. And the dogs were always on there before we were. So it was a fight who was gonna get to sleep. But yeah, so we come back and that was it. We had nothing. I remember having about like it was euros, 40 odd euros left like in my pocket and thought, wow, that was close. I only got lost a couple of times as well driving back, once in Spain and once in France. So not too bad. 3.5 days. And then that was in the September, and it was very difficult, obviously. But by the June, yeah, it was the June next year, 2013. We opened up like in a little community center. Let's get a class going in the community center. That was in the June, and in the we built it up so quick. By the December, we had another full-time gym, huge full-time gym. That was within the 6 months.
Can't
And
keep a good
it's
man
still there
down.
now. Yeah, it's still there now. It's really successful, massive. My son runs it all now. I just let him get on with the whole thing because I just haven't got the time. And I don't want to be around people that are quite keen on getting their children filled with poisons. So yeah, that's the only reason why I actually stepped away. No, well, I was busy anyway, like helping others, but then I thought I can't be around these people,
No,
you know, cheering and saying, "Oh, what a hero, saved Granny." Fuck off,
no. Yeah.
like so.
So when did you start doing mega research and start helping people in terms of the mortgage fraud and the banks and all the rest of it?
Well, I was researching it on and off from 2007. So like keep going in. I mean, it was a little, we were in Spain and it was kind of difficult to get as much information. Like, like now the internet is amazing now, but and it wasn't as good back then, was it? So, little bits and finding out and then getting a hold of like other people who'd been through similar. Um, and then come back in like 2012. By the time we settled in, because I didn't even have any television, internet connection, or anything like that when we eventually got into this little old mining house thing. The old two up, two down, like old pit village thing. Um, So by the time I got onto the internet would have been like 2013, and that's when I started like getting involved again from there. And then it just kind of like spirals up the more you actually do. And we were still extremely busy as well. I mean, we were running big, big fight events, big fight shows, in different venues around the Northeast, as well as like building up the actual gym business, and traveling around with others when they were actually fighting. So it was like really busy. And then because I was running the gym, I was only doing little bits. I couldn't, yeah, so you can't have two lives, although I kind of did. And it wasn't until I would say, oh, maybe it's even, I actually left the gym 2 years ago. That's why I can't do this anymore. It's like, so it was like 2 years ago, just like, oh, it's just got to like, give it full time there. But before then, it would have been like little bits and keep going, still helping a lot of people. And I would say that's from, say, 2013, 14 going onwards.
So so we were talking before we hit record and I was saying what would you like to sort of focus on today and you were talking about what you're working on. So how did that develop? Was it Checkmate the Matrix?
Checkmate the Matrix,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the group itself is all based on a platform called Skool.com. And the reason it's on there is because I know the guy who owns the entire platform called Sam Ovens, massive internet marketing genius. And the platform's getting better and better all the time. It is amazing. They're all going to have their own native video soon, so you can actually store your own videos on there. Whereas, like at the minute, you've got to go onto something like Wistia or Vimeo, YouTube, do it there, then transfer it over. So it's going to be able to hold their own videos and live stream as well inside that platform. So it's just getting better and better all the time. There's more postmen knocking and the dog going mad. Um, just it's live. Um, but what I've been doing though is looking at what a lot of other people were doing, and I was thinking, there's got to be a better way of doing this because everyone's trying to like, do like the three-letter process, right? Everybody's heard of it, everybody's tried it, and then I was saying, well, how long have you been doing that three-letter process for? About 6 months or a year? So how many letters have you done then? About 12, 20. What happened to the three? And it's like they're playing table tennis and it's just
Mm.
going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. I thought, well, that's pointless. Like you're never going to get anything closed and you're never going to get any relief from it unless you can shut them down completely. And that's why I started over the last like 3 years really deep diving into the GDPR, DPA, and I'd already before that been studying equity quite heavily. So, which is a completely separate branch of law, and I don't think many people actually get that and how powerful equity is. They think it's something that they've got inside the house. And it's not. It's so powerful. That's what real justice is. That's what real law is. Whereas everything else that you see is just statutory legislation. It's literally man-made rules. Where all right, equity may be man-made rules as well, but it's more along conscience and justice. You know, and that itself, if you use it, combine it with the GDPR, it smashes the debt collectors to pieces. They haven't got a leg to stand on.
GDPR was brought in when we were part of the EU because it was European legislation or
Yeah.
data protection. So why are we still relying on GDPR? I know there's the Protection Act as well, but why is GDPR still relevant here if we're not part of the EU, which we know we damn well are, but
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And there's the proof of it without anybody asking like any more questions. We are 100% part of the EU. We never left anything. They had a fake vote. They had a nonsense like time where everybody made fortunes out of doing it. All the rich got much, much richer. And everyone complained. It's just It's just exactly the same thing as where everyone had the poll tax riots, right? Can you remember that?
Uh-huh.
Right, they all had the poll tax riots. Everybody was like smashing the place up. So then they had like got rid of Maggie Thatcher, right? That man, Maggie Thatcher, and then like all they did was say, right, we're getting rid of the poll tax, change the name of the council tax, and then that was it, right? So everyone, oh, that's great, we've won. What have you won? It's exactly the same. Just change the name of it. Is it nice for anybody? Is like, is it lawful? Is it legal? Is it fair? So but everyone had had enough of like arguing then because they thought, oh no, I've won it. They've changed the name. They got rid of it. And yeah, really, okay.
I always thought poll tax was because I do remember the riots and all the issues. I was a bit younger, and but I always thought council tax was always in place, and she changed it to poll tax to basically tax every person that lived in the house as opposed to there just being one bill.
But that's exactly what it is now, though, isn't it? On the council tax, there's no difference. I mean, weirdly enough, I'm involved and got court cases, quite a few at the minute with council tax, um, and I don't think anybody would be prepared to be shocked at the level of corruption that exists in the judiciary until you've been into a magistrate's court that they say is the council tax court.
Oh, I know, yeah. I went in with a friend recently as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's, and we've actually been in the hearings. The last the last one I was in, they wouldn't let me into the actual sitting down into the court pit, so I was actually shouting at them from the public gallery. And we still like got them to speak to me and got all the names of the magistrates. And but from there we've had to go and file a full judicial review, and we're going to move it into the Chancery Division as well of the High Court, where we're now filing against them for the unconscionable conduct, and all like hugely provable under statute as well as equity. Because even when they're using their own, like the Local Government Finance Act 1992, and they're actually quoting that they have the power now to enforce a tax, they still break all their own rules. They never follow it. They never follow their own directions. So they're actually breaching that many of their own regulations anyway. That we're going to combine that with the use of equity brings in the unconscionable conduct, which is getting close to misfeasance in a public office. So we're filing against that as well. So I'm extremely busy along those lines. But it comes from GDPR though. That's where it all comes from. So going back to the question, why do we still use it? It's still accepted completely and it's in place. And it's called UK GDPR actually, if you look at it
Oh, is
now.
it? Right.
So, it is a European thing, but it actually calls it now UK GDPR. So it's all exactly the same, 100%.
So
But
what got you into looking at GDPR? Because there's loads of different ways to skin a cat, in terms of how people are approaching this. And I've been on my own journey in terms of the bankruptcy with the council tax, and I've sort of took guidance from one guy, and then another guy, then another guy, and then another one, and it probably hasn't done me any favors because when it comes into the next hearing, of which there have been many, it's it's not focusing on what it was. So, but then I keep evolving because I keep learning new things. But the GDPR isn't something that I focused on at all up to this point. It's been the fact that there are no liability orders and they were taken out of law in 2003. The fact that I didn't get served the statutory demand, um, and they can't prove that I did. And what was the other thing? Oh yeah, and I've got an email from the magistrates court confirming that there were no court orders in my name.
okay. So let's move that into the GDPR aspect then, right?
Okay.
So there's no liability order, okay, on there, right? There was no court case there. So putting them two together, that tells you that there is no legitimate interest for any of them to be processing your data. That's where it actually gets more interesting by studying and looking at GDPR. So you've heard that term so many times, like, oh, data is the new gold, data is, and that's what they're raping us of data every single day. That's why you've got like all the information going into supermarkets or shops or shopping. I mean, everything, you can't move anywhere without getting data taken off you one way or the other, even if it's just video or photographic data. It's all data. Now, when you look at that there, they haven't got a liability order. They haven't got any court hearing. That is solid proof there that there is no lawful reason for them to be processing the data. They cannot, under GDPR, have your data and process your data without what they call a legitimate interest, and there has to be a lawful reason. So if there was a valid liability order, then that would be what they would call legitimate interest. So if anybody's ever argued with a debt collector in any way, shape, or form, and they'll always say, no, no, it's a legitimate interest. You'll all know that term, but there isn't one. That's the thing. So under Article 6 on GDPR, that's what they'll say. But under Article 6, we have a legitimate interest, but it has to be a lawful reason. So, for instance, if it was the liability order, right? If you've proven that there's no non-existent, so well, show me it then. In the court, going into a chancery court, an equitable court, it's actually called like the business and property courts. That's its full name. They don't call it chancery, but you will say to them that you have to go and produce the documents, and under them, under CPR 31.6, they have to give you the full legal documents, but they haven't got them, have they?
So I was in the business and property court
Right.
in Birmingham.
Okay, there is one in Birmingham. Yeah. Uh-huh.
However, it's very confusing. Like they called it business and property court, but they also called it county court.
Ah, right. You've got to have a look at the heading on the paper as well, because the what they do, and I don't know why they do it, but probably to cause confusion. I've got two cases at the minute that I'm helping somebody with, and it says onto there that it's the High Court, but then if you read the small print further down, what they're doing is it's just the High Court that issues the paperwork, but the one that's adjudicating is the
It's
County Court.
county court, yeah.
You've got to actually get down to it. So it's not, you have to get your filing and you have to do it yourself to get it into the Business and Property Court or Chancery Division of the High Court. So it's you have to do it. But in the county court, you see, they don't have the experience, although they have what they call a concurrent jurisdiction. What that means is they're allowed to look at equity and use equity, which was, when they actually, the Adjudicator Act, when they joined it together, and say, well, you can have now a county court where they're allowed to have equity jurisdiction as well as common law jurisdiction. So when they're putting it together like that, but the judges haven't got the experience or the knowledge on equity to invoke equity. So you have, it's that everyone's got the right to remain silent, right? But for whatever reason, as soon as the copper turns up, they can't shut them out, right? They've got the right to do it, just not the ability. Well, that's the same in the county court. They've all got the actual right to invoke equity into the actual hearing, but they haven't got the ability to actually do it, or the knowledge or the experience to do it. So they haven't got a clue. And then what happens is the debt collectors, be that like on the council tax side, they'll hide behind the statute. So they'll have a statutory like power that they'll hide behind to actually stop showing the liability order. I've seen them actually in the county courts or magistrates courts, sorry, and they'll actually just say, oh, well, we've got a liability order. So it's like, well, bring it forth and show me it. The magistrates don't need to do that. So hang on, like lollipop woman for like 7 days of the week, and now today you're a magistrate sitting in there, right? Says who? Right? But they just ignore everything. So you're literally on to nothing with the magistrates doing it with the council tax. But you've got to get through that barrier though to get them into the court later on, into your own court. Um, but the when it gets into the business property court or chancery, we'll call it chancery because everyone understands that they can't hide behind the statute. So you can bring forth a lot more. Whereas in the smaller courts, like CPR 31.6, they'll not even care what that is or know what that is. Whereas in Chancery, they have to bring forth the documents. You can't hide behind the statute. They will not allow it to be used as an instrument of fraud, is what equity says.
So, just jumping a little bit to say, let's say somebody that's received a possession order for their property, and everything was ignored, like CPR 31.6 and all the rest of it was all ignored. Then permission to appeal was refused on 2 counts, and in terms of that county court journey, it's come to the end, and you're told that you can't go any further. Is that true?
No. So exactly this kid, I'm in the middle of like a good friend of mine, a lifetime friend of mine. So everything is correct from what I'm saying, So I've known him like since childhood. So I'm like assisting him right now. Now they did a possession order on him. And then I mean, I don't know how long yours were for, but this was a 10-minute hearing. It was scheduled for 10 minutes. I thought this is a nearly a £900,000 home, and you got 10 minutes, and you're going to take it away from them. So, but we had actually well, him himself, I've known him like forever, but he used to actually help us way back in the day, like to run these martial arts shows as well. I mean, we literally had a whole street shut down in the town and built a massive what do you call it, a marquee, and it shut the town centre down. But he had a lot of influence because he was a councillor, so like was able to control these things. So, but what he done is we'd actually created a private trust. So, with that private trust, we actually presented the possession hearing with that and stopped it immediately. So, they went in, to the actual court, gone to there, and just said, "Look, this is all in a private trust. There's nothing that you can do about it." The judge went straight away. We said, "You're not getting a possession order, then, are you?" And the barrister was like, "Oh, well, we're gonna file for mortgage fraud then." Because obviously if it's not owned by you, what they're saying is then you shouldn't have borrowed money on it, because what it was an unmortgaged property. It was just for a bridging loan, supposedly for 2, 3 months, but we've got proof now that the actual guy who did the loan purposely used the solicitors to make sure the deal collapsed, and so it was impossible to actually pay the back in the 3-month period. So now he's putting on possession, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like unfortunately he's got a big mouth. Unfortunately for him, but so we have the proof now, and even the solicitors, who will have to testify to what happened. But straight away we just put the trust document in, stop the repossession.
But if you've got a trust document, but your property is still mortgaged, as in a normal mortgage.
Yeah. But what you actually put into a trust, by the way, it's not the property, it's your interest in the property. So it's called your beneficial equitable interest. Right. So for instance, let's just say, and it's not equity, right? Just like, but it's kind of similar. So if you got like say a £3,000 house, £100,000 is on a mortgage, 200 is your value, right? But it's also your beneficial equitable interest. That's what you assign into the trust. It's your interest. So that happens is that the title split. The legal title stays with the land registry. You don't have to change it whatsoever. The beneficial title, that is actually what goes into the trust. There's nothing they can do with it. An equitable judge will know that. And straight away, there's nothing that they can't repossess a house. Even if there's a mortgage on it, they can't repossess the house. Same thing when you actually do it, for instance, care home fees. I mean, I know this is a different subject, but on care home fees, it's massive income for the council.
Yeah.
So what you should separate your tenancy, make sure you haven't got a joint tenancy, go into tenants in common. There's a special form you can use to separate the tenancy because most solicitors and everything will immediately put you on a joint tenancy,
Mm.
which means you both 100% own it. Yeah? 100%. It's not 50% each. And a lot of people get confused with that. So if you get put in a care home, even if your partner's still living in the home, they'll actually say, well, that's worth 300,000. So they'll use that whole 300,000. Whereas if you split it to tenants in common, they can only use half of it. But then they can also not repossess half a home if you only own half of it. So you should
Mm.
make sure you split, right? So same thing. It's the equitable interest because it's split. Half of it's a mortgage, half of it's an equitable beneficial interest. They can't repossess the home, you see.
But going back to what you said, the 10-minute hearing, which is absolutely standard for possession hearing,
Incredible.
which is ludicrous. But that's in the county court, isn't it? So they don't have the knowledge to go, oh, a private trust. Oh, okay, we won't do anything. But you said it did.
But they do, because they've got a concurrent jurisdiction. All right. So every single county court judge has a concurrent jurisdiction. So he has the ability and the actual authority to invoke equity into any court that he's in. Now, it literally is a look. I mean, the amount of ridiculous decisions I've heard against debt collector or on behalf of debt collectors from these county court judges is just astounding. So, I'm not saying that like every single judge is going to go, yeah, no problem, that's an equitable thing, but you can, and this judge was no friend of ours, I tell you, because he shouted at me a couple of times. My fault, I was interrupting things, but when people are telling blatant lies, it's hard to keep your mouth shut, isn't it? But,
We were lucky not to get thrown out.
yeah, oh, yeah, I mean, and yeah, it's, so especially when I wasn't actually a defendant,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
was, it wasn't anything like that. So, yeah, but he just as soon as I said straight away as a trust him, saying, "Oh well, there's nothing I can do about it. You have to go into chancery then." That
Right.
no repossession here
In-
today.
Interesting. So let's give people that are watching and listening some easy, simple to follow steps, and in terms of what you're teaching. So let's go for somebody's got the debt collectors at their door for council tax. What should they do?
But first of all, what I would do is I'll make sure I didn't open the door. Don't talk to them. Don't engage with them. I mean, there's a guy that I know is like, and he's funny. He actually says you open the door and stare at them, really scary, and just like don't say anything, and and then close the door really slowly, like following the door around. I just wouldn't engage. Don't give them your energy. Don't, because they're not allowed to be there anyway. But what I would be doing is I would file the whole SAR process with the view of getting them into a court, the court of your choice. And that's the same with any type of debt, not just the council tax. Obviously, there's just as many people involved in unsecured debt as there is in the council tax side. But the same thing applies. You're either going to have a legally executed liability order, and they haven't. You've just said it yourself. They withdrew it in 2003. So there is no paperwork. And the thing is, they can't say, oh, well, it's just a process. Even the process itself has to have backed up signatures on the actual paperwork from the magistrates. And we know they don't exist. They don't do anything. It's literally a rubber stamping exercise. That went funny there. And then if we switch that from the actual liability order to what we call a legally executed instrument of assignment. Some people might call it a deed of assignment, but sometimes they'll argue, well, you don't need a deed. You still need an instrument which needs to be signed, right? So semantics, they'll play with it. But so go through the whole SCR process. You do an SCR1, subject access request, or DSAR, some people might call it data subject. It's the same thing. You ask for all the data that they're processing and why they're processing it and what's their lawful intention. So you're going to ask for the legally executed liability order, or if it's the debt like a consumer debt, then the instrument of assignment. So either one of them. So then you'll ask for the legitimate interest assessment, which is like a risk assessment, right? They have to do that. Every single debt collector has to do that. So does a council. So does a bank. They all have to do it before they share your data or process your data. They never ever do it because they don't expect to get asked about it. So you make a list anyway of what you want. Then you send it off. They've got 30 days to reply with full GDPR compliance. They always send you tons of stuff, right? They never ever like reply with compliance. They just give you rubbish. Councils actually just ignore you. They just think that they're so powerful. Um, but then, so what you do it with follow up SER. Nobody answers that. Never had anyone answer a second one. So then we file the next one after another 7 days. We file the what we call the letter before claim. and we say this is under pre-action protocols, and if you don't answer this within 14 days, then we are going to consider like legal proceedings against you. After that 14-day period, you've got to do 14-day period for the pre-action protocol, or they'll kick it out. So then after that, then you would file an M1 and take them to court for breach of data. And if they haven't replied with full compliance, they've already breached anyway. It
Mm.
doesn't matter if there was a liability order or not. If they don't respond, which the councils are famous for not responding, they've already breached anyway. So you can still file a claim. Doesn't matter if there's a liability order or not. You file the claim against breach of data, and you can get it into your own court, which is going to go into the business and property court or chancery division. There's about 8 or 9 of them around the country, in different places. So yeah, you might have to travel a little bit, but don't go into the county court because you're playing with fire. Um, although they do have a concurrent jurisdiction, they are not very good at it. So get it into the correct court and you will get a lot more support. And then if you take it onto the debt side, as in like consumer debt rather than council tax, then you just got to have the correct case law. And we've got the correct case law that we use in all of our cases. That is an actual High Court judgment from the Chancery Division. So because they've actually got High Court judgment from the Chancery Division telling a debt collector, if you haven't got the instrument of assignment, you're finished, right? And it's an actual, because of the if you've seen the citation, it finishes with CH, right? That's the end of the citation for Chancery. So the Chancery are never going to allow any of their High Court judgments to be ignored.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, you get them
Nice.
to the correct court and they've got no, and it means if you haven't got that instrument of assignment, deed or not, it needs to be signed, it needs to be witnessed, it needs to be presented. And if you haven't got it, then you're up the creek with no paddle.
Nice.
Point, right? The whole debt industry, if we look, right, that it's all built on a lie. It's 100-year-old this year, the debt industry, 1925, Law of Property Act 1925, right? 2025, 100 years ago, they created this act, and then all the debt collectors jumped on it to actually create this false narrative, okay? But, I'm going off on a little bit now, but if you ever have a debt of anybody, and I'm not talking about like, I'm talking about a consumer debt in this one, right? Like a credit card, bank loan, catalogue, anything like that. And they sell it to a debt collector, right? They don't sell it, they do it on huge big block data. I'm in court umpteen times, right? And what they do is they try and switch it from, we always go in and attack them on data. They always try and switch it over to debt. Try and say, oh, but there was a debt. Yeah, there was. That's irrelevant. We're attacking you because of data. You're processing the data without a legal title, right? They cannot have a legal title if they bought block data on the internet, which is the only thing that you do. I know it's a little bit different.
Do you get involved with speeding stuff?
A little bit, and we're not on GDPR though, but because yeah, we use what I call a statutory declaration. So the thing is, like, what happens is they'll send out the S172 to say, that would give us the driver's details. I mean, if it just happens that you don't get that, right, and then you all of a sudden you find out you've been convicted of all of this thing, and either the S172 or the speeding, right, SP30, whatever it is, then you're going to file a statutory declaration. On the statutory declaration, you are literally legally declaring that you never received any of that paperwork, right? So if you haven't received it, but they never send it apart from just boom, it's in the post, second class post, and that's it. So who knows if you got it or not? So if you sign a statutory declaration saying, well, I didn't get any of that, I swear I didn't get any of that, they have to actually close the case. Then they send it back to the actual police department that are going to handle that case. And we still can't find, unless it was serious and you've done something stupid, like speeding 90 and a 30, or you've hit somebody or anything like that, if it's, 35 or like 40 and a 30, anything, normal speeding ones, then they never restart the case again.
So I've got a personal case, and basically my car is in a trust and it's registered to the trust. And just make this short, we liaised with them when this came through, and basically said perhaps we have no idea. Perhaps the plates were cloned. Perhaps you could investigate this. That was how the letter started. And then the next thing, because it's a different address, it's my mum's address. Two coppers turned up at my mum's, and when she realised why they were there, she told them to piss off. And then we carried on writing notices, and eventually there was a phone call where they were just there was an inspect it was apparently an inspector, but just sarcastic, not taking it seriously, etc., etc. And we were saying, if you can give us photographic evidence, we can confirm or deny who that person is, and we never got it. And then the next thing was we got a load of stuff sent through, including a photograph from where the alleged speeding happened, which is Christ knows how far away because you can't see. You could just see the back of the car. You can't see who's in it or anything. And that was the first time we'd ever seen any photographic supposed evidence. And then a court case happened without my knowledge, and I just got the verdict come through, and basically there was no speeding offence done, but there was 6 points and a massive fine for non-disclosure. So a stat declaration has gone in, and I've now got a hearing on the 4th of August because I didn't know about the hearing, and that's why the declaration went in.
Right. A lot of, I mean, like, never ever have I heard of anyone getting a new hearing, unless that, because of what you've done and stated, maybe that you've just pissed them off too much and, right, well, let's get them in for another hearing. Whereas, like, if you, like, don't kind of engage with them, right, because you never actually got any news of the hearing or any paperwork, and then you sign the statutory declaration, um, most of it, I've just that's the only time I've actually heard one that was a normal, like, speeding one rather than an excessive or silly. Nothing ever else happens because it goes back. It's too much paperwork. But if you went through all of that process first, you probably just thought, right, you've made them angry at you, and so they want to try and make an example of you, you know. So any case that tries to use something that's not of the norm, should we call it that, then they do try and make like an example of you because they don't want anyone else knowing that they can do these things. So they're going to try their best to actually to
So
show.
if that was you, Peter, given that there has been correspondence and letters and notices and all the rest of it, and the trustees have tried to help and assist, but the police weren't given any evidence until right at the very end, after they'd taken it to court, what would you do in that court hearing?
Right now, I mean, I would just use all of that evidence that they've given you. So, well, we have no idea who was driving it. It's a trust possession. Look, it's registered to a trust. So, we can't tell you who the driver was, and the keeper is a trust, so that it's not us. So, how can you actually file a case saying well, I mean, I don't know what you've got written on either trustee or the trust name or whatever. Well, there is no legal personality there, so they can't actually be fined or prosecuted anyway, can
Exactly.
they?
Yeah.
I mean, if it says, let's just say, for instance, never settle podcast trust, for instance, then there's no legal personality there. They can't actually issue either a fine or a case or anything against that.
Well, they
It's
basically went to the insurance of the car, which is where they got my name, and then obviously wrote to me at my address. And as
brilliant.
and as a result of that, my insurance company didn't renew my policy.
Right. Well, that's a massive GDPR breach there. So that's a GDPR breach against the insurance company and against the police themselves. So that's what I would be actually going in that angle on there. And that's the thing was like these people don't realize the amount of breaches that they do that they think they can get away with. DVLA. Do you know how much DVLA make out of selling the data? I mean, millions upon millions upon millions they make for selling your data. And I've got a friend of mine who I've just been chatting to last week, who's like in part of our private group, and it was his friend who actually took the DVLA through the court system. Didn't actually get into court because they admitted everything beforehand with the ICO, and they changed, for the private parking tickets, they actually changed the rules to make sure that they could still share the data. These private parking companies and the police and all that, they've actually got access free. It's not free, they pay, but they don't have to apply to get your details. They can actually go in themselves. They've got full access to the DVLA website. They just click on, go in, and they get your data, right? Which is an enormous breach. Now, there has to be a lawful basis of that. Well, let's just think about it where was the lawful basis for you? Well, there wasn't one because they couldn't prove anything. They couldn't prove who they're. Now, they haven't got, if they've breached it to get your details, that's how I would be attacking them now. That is a massive data breach there. That I would literally be putting a single separate claim against them for that, so that they actually knew that that was going ahead as well. And you'll
Oh,
get different results because they shouldn't have your name. And how can they actually be fining you or putting a case against you when it's nothing to do with you?
so what would that be? Would that be an N1 form into the?
Yeah, N1 form. I would do an N1 form. First of all, I would actually do a pre-action protocol notice. So if you don't do that, they'll get it struck out straight away. So do a pre-action protocol notice, send it to, say, the insurance company and the police, one each. And then after that, then I would file, 14 days later, I would file the N1 against them as well. So you'd have to check about, because obviously with government agencies, it's slightly different. But 100%, 100 mile an hour, I'd be going after the actual insurance company.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Right. So we've covered council tax and bailiffs. We've covered a little bit of speeding. If somebody's found themselves in a situation with their mortgage company, where, like a lot of people, are on the bones of their arse and can't afford to pay, especially now that the banks have decided to, if you finish your fixed rate at 2.8%, they're whacking you up to 9.8%. And if your credit rating shit, you can't renegotiate to get on a better rate because you just have to go on their standard variable, which is making more and more people lose their houses even quicker. So if somebody's in that situation and maybe they're heading for a possession order or being threatened with that, what would you suggest?
Mhm. Well, everybody, 100%, everybody should have any asset that they have. And remember what I was saying, it's not the physical, actual bricks and mortar, it's your beneficial, equitable interest in that actual asset. So they can split the title, the actual legal title stays with the land registry, the equitable title goes into the trust. That will hinder anyone trying to repossess. Now, on top of that, then I would continue to make honourable payments. If it's like you can afford that payment, then that's what you've always been doing. I would keep paying that, not try and allow them to hike it up to there. But also go back to your original documentation. We're actually in the middle of a court case at the minute. It's been filed into Chancery, and we've got copies of all the original documents. They haven't signed any of them. So none of the actual mortgage agreements are signed anywhere by the other party, the
So,
mortgage lender or anything.
so you actually got those documents from the bank,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and how did you get them?
An SAR sent an SAR off requesting all the information, including the copies of the original contracts.
Okay, and what if, because I know somebody that's done that and they do not send any of the original contracts. They've sent,
Perfect, and that's a massive breach of data. As soon as they haven't complied, you see, this is like we should actually be studying under like GDPR and what happens when they don't do what they're supposed to do. So if they haven't supplied that data, then that itself is a massive breach. I mean, you're looking at thousands of pounds in compensation just for that already, anyway. So the thing is, if they won't supply it, why won't they supply it? Probably because they haven't got any legally executed documentation. So therefore, you can then put them into the Chancery Division again, and what you'll do is you'll actually ask for an injunction. So it'll stop them going after anything and trying to enforce it while you do the injunction. However, at the same time, you can force them under CPR 31.6 to bring forth those documentations in the court. Now, if they don't do that, then that's going to be contempt of court. So again,
And what if the district judge totally ignored
not
that
a district
request?
judge, it's a high court judge. You don't talk to district
Yeah,
idiots.
yeah.
You know, we're going to use an equitable. That's what I'm saying. You've got to go to the business and property court. You've got to get into chancery where you will use your chancery judges, the high court judges. Now,
So
I'm not
let's
saying that they're perfect. I'm not, but they're way better, and they've got the qualifications and the knowledge to know what's equitable and what isn't.
and so if somebody's already got the possession order granted and haven't been able to appeal, it's been refused, they can still open up a new application to the
Yeah.
High Court.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's going to be very difficult, and you know, we've just watched like a repossession thing, haven't we? You
We
know,
have,
but you know, but all of that was 100% illegal because there isn't a single order that they can actually give out, court order that allows destruction of property or breaking in. It's just not allowed. They still, nobody's got the authority to actually break into a property to repossess, especially when someone's living in there.
yeah,
So, and to be assisted, which we've got case law against it already, to be assisted by the police, they can all be prosecuted, all of them.
yeah,
So, you know, I mean, if it happens, we know it happens regularly, but there is ways to deal with it after. But I can't tell you, you know, that anything will stop it happening. But we do have repercussions, that's for sure. But you know, you can never guarantee, you know, that they're going to stop it because they are 100%. It's the biggest mafia gang that exists in the country. So
yeah,
there's the only difference between it is they get like the authority because they've got a bigger gang with more members than we have. And
yeah.
that's all there is to it.
Well, at the moment, Peter, at the moment, we need to try and change that. So if people are interested in what you're saying and they think, oh my God, I need to speak to this guy, I need to get his help, what's the best place for them to go to? You've got a website?
It's Checkmate the Matrix. It's not well, it is a website, but it's like it's a private group.
Yeah,
So, you know, they can, I'll send you the link. So just click on the link. They can get in and actually have a look. They can even get a free trial for it and have a look on there. The whole platform, right? Let's just say Facebook as a platform or YouTube as a platform. It's called Skool.com. Brilliant, brilliant platform. The facilities on it are amazing. So we use all those facilities. So it gives you, with it being school, Skool, you get classrooms, right? So you can go into the different classrooms to get all this knowledge share on GDPR, DPA 2018, equity, you know, as well as all the other types of things, the trust side of it as well. You know, and even on it's the different sections. So you can't use the same section on GDPR for council tax as you can for debt or for private parking. There's actually individual classrooms that all of the SERs are designed for council tax. They're designed for consumer debt, like credit cards, or the private parking side on there. And we're advancing it to go into the council parking or speeding as well, that type of thing. You know, so that all of the actual individual classrooms are specific, topic specific. So it's a lot easier for people to go in and follow rather than getting an SEL template or a DSOR template. Show me a template, right? And it's got to fit everything. And there's like 3,425 questions on, you know what I mean? It's like, it's
yeah,
pointless. It's got to be specific. So they can go in there, have a look around and learn. And, you know, what I never do, which is crazy, I suppose, really, is get some testimonies for people in there because you know, the people love it and they've had so much success in there. And we're actually closing down thousands upon thousands of pounds in debt, like all the time. You know, just speaking, I'm not asking for anything, right? This woman just bought me a crate of beer, right? Because we got rid of like £17,000 worth of debt, like in a couple of notices. Boom, gone. Which
Amazing.
this is Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesday. So I'm actually going on tonight, going to do a live tonight, and I'm going to actually reveal the three massive debt collectors in the UK that are highly, highly active, and they haven't got licenses to actually do what they're doing.
Oh,
They're not FCA licensed. They've got a different FCA license, but they haven't got the one to actually enforce debt or to actually take it and file cases and sue people in their own name.
well, I'm immediately thinking Jacobs and Brister and Suter. I don't know if that's any of
Wish,
them, but
wish. Unfortunately not, unfortunately.
um, yeah. Okay, so for them to find that, it's checkthematrix.com, is it?
Checkmate, like chess,
Checkmate
checkmate the matrix. That's
the
what we're
Matrix.
doing. We're teaching you to play a better game of chess in this chessboard of life than the matrix can play against you.
Totally. And are you on any of the platforms like X or Facebook or anything like that?
I am, same thing. X, checkmate the matrix. YouTube, checkmate the matrix. Yeah, Facebook, checkmate the matrix.
Cool. Well, people, this guy, his knowledge is off the scale, and I'm like sitting here thinking a million different things as well myself for my own personal challenges. Thank you so much for sharing some of your story and for playing along with me in terms of those scenarios so people can get a real feel for how powerful this is and how they can start helping themselves. I always like to finish my conversations with anything that you would like to share or feel called to comment on, Peter, anything at all.
Well, there's a lot of people that find themselves in very, very what they see as desperate, non-ending, terrible situations, and there is a solution to every problem. There really is, especially if it's just a financial one. If it's a mathematical problem, there's a mathematical solution. I even have contacts, like friends of mine, that if you don't want to fight the debt, if you're literally beaten up inside and you haven't got like the drive or like energy to get into a GDPR fight, I've got like companies that will take it over fire, and they'll actually, without you getting IVA, DRO, bankruptcy, they'll stop it all, freeze all interest on any debts or anything like that, even if it's council tax, even if it's debt collectors knocking on the door, they'll stop it all, and they'll put you into a management plan, which I've seen them do it for a woman had over £100,000 in debts,
Wow.
right? Consumer debts, credit cards, bank loan stuff, and he got it down to £1 a month for the whole lot. £1 a month. And it's not an IVA, it's not a bankruptcy, it's not a debt, a DRO. It actually sets it up in his way, and it's in a private members club. He's brilliant at what he does. So, even if you can't go the GDPR route, if you haven't got any fight left, not everybody can continue.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the end. Just go and take a different route. We can help you get rid of stress. And Stephen is his name, the guy that we work with, and he's incredible at what he does. Different to me, but he does it there, and he helps loads of people. It's never ever that desperate that you need to do anything, that would upset a lot of other people in your life.
Yeah.
So, look towards others, and if I can't help you, I know a man who can.
Yeah, amazing. And that's what it's all about, Certainly, over the last few months, I've got to know more people like yourself, Peter, very, very knowledgeable, but also very caring, very authentic, and want to help, and add that value to people so people can start empowering themselves. I think what a lot of us get frustrated with is there are a lot of people still sitting on the sidelines and they know that everything's bullshit. They know that everything's corrupt, but they're still paying their bills and they're still not challenging. And until we can get those numbers, and I know it's not for everyone, right? But until we can get more and more people saying, hang on a minute, this isn't right, and I'm going to challenge this, and I'm lawfully entitled to do that, then the fight is still quite difficult. But when more and more people come together and do this, it's a bit like what you mentioned earlier, what's happened with Trevor Mealham over the last few days, and obviously the podcast went live this morning just before recording this with you, in terms of the horrific way that he was treated on last Friday by so-called police, by absolute thugs and authorities and the establishment. Because let's be honest, Lloyd's Bank made sure that they put every single bit of fucking corruption into this that they could to get him out of that house. And they're going to do their damnedest to destroy that man. They tried to, but he's going to come back fighting. And, we've been saying for a long time, especially with things like that do get violent in terms of these house evictions and everything, we need more people. We need more men. We need more men that are going, this is wrong. It's like the new groups that are shooting up all over the place, and then the Shields group. I might have called that wrong, but they're out there now protecting the women and the children because of how dangerous the streets are. This is what we want. We need more men, able-bodied men that want to step into their masculinity that they've been told for years they shouldn't be doing because it's toxic, but allow them to be men and to come together and to create solutions to stop people being terrorized, because that's exactly what's happening. And I've just got into my soapbox. I'm going to come back off now, but that's yeah, I just felt I needed to say that, just purely what I've been feeling over the last few days, also with another friend of ours as well.
Needs to be said though, and that's what it is. But it's so easy to see if you've got the eyes to see it. Like I always call it, it's that you've got to have equitable eyes. So you're seeing things with reality and justice. It's like you put a different set of glasses on, like that film. I think it's called They Can See something, and yeah, it's like you see them for what they really are. And it's horrendous the way that they actually. It's all literally there to use you as the cash cow until you die, and then they get rid of you, and that's it. You know.
Exactly. And then
I,
they fucking charge you inheritance tax, and it costs you 8 grand to be buried. You know what I mean? It's just like whatever. Um, anyway, thank you so much, Peter. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you better over this hour and a half. It's been very knowledgeable for me as well. So I thank you. And I know the viewers and the listeners are going to absolutely love it. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people checking you out on your Checkmate the Matrix, for sure.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a great pleasure to chat to you.